Hello everyone, how you doing? And you're very welcome to this week's The Last Word on Formula One with myself, Aidan Raftery, and the show is, as always, kindly sponsored by Best Drive here in Roscommon Town. And of course, to talk about all things Formula One, we have the one and only, the enigma that is Michael O'Grady. Hello Michael, how are you? Are you well?
Hey, not too bad at all, Ed. How's yourself today?
Oh, sure, not too bad. I'm still here anyway, which is a good sign. Well, it's a good sign for me anyway.
It's a good sign for everybody, really.
Oh, this is it, Yeah, that's well. I didn't like to say it,
Well,
leave that up
I
to
know.
other people to say if they want to say it. But yeah. So this week we're looking ahead to the Hungary Grand Prix.
We are indeed the Formula One Qatar Airways Hungarian Grand Prix, to give it its full name, in a
Oh yes.
Hungaroring. Now, if you're tuning in at any stage, if you go on F1.com, practice session one, of course, is, well, when we're recording, this is less than an hour away. If you go on F1.com, there is a join live session area. You don't have to sign up to anything. You can just go on. It's not the most exciting thing in the world because really you're just seeing times and comments. But if you're that way inclined that you need to know what's going on, surf on over there. And of course, we have the race on the 22nd at 2 o'clock, and qualifying is between 3 and 4 on Saturday.
Very good. So
Yeah.
I suppose looking at the I suppose lap times and practice times and qualifying, as we say it every week, I suppose. What's the average lap time for this course?
The average of fastest lap time that's ever been on this course is 1:16.6 by Lewis Hamilton. Now I can't
I thought
see.
you were going to say by yourself and Paul.
No, we're much quicker, but the wheelie bins don't qualify.
Oh, that's a shame.
Now, yeah, exactly. Now, that is the fastest lap time that there is for that track. Now, you're not going to see that obviously this year with the cars, and I doubt you're going to see Lewis up there either. Mercedes is doing well, but isn't really doing well enough. I know Fernando Alonso fancies himself now top three in this race. That's not that unusual. He hasn't finished. He's only finished out of the top three twice, so that's not that unusual. Now, last year, as we looked at it, pole position was a 1:17.3.
Yeah.
So as you can see, the lap time it's 3/4 of a second slower, you could say, than the fastest lap because of these type of cars that have now. We're not going to be worrying the fastest lap with these cars at all. Last year we had Max Verstappen won the race with Lewis second and George Russell third, which was a very good showing for Mercedes last year, really. Yeah. When you're looking at this particular track, the man who has the most wins is actually Lewis Hamilton. He's won this 8 times, which is quite impressive. And the most constructors win is McLaren. They've won it 11 times, which is very impressive. It's a short track. It's 4.381 kilometers, it says here, or 2.722 miles. So we're going to be looking at the guts of 70 laps, which is good because it's like everything. If you have a long lap, it doesn't feel, someone overtakes, it doesn't feel the same, whereas I find if you have more laps, it gets a bit more interesting sometimes. And we've only one DRS zone in this one. I don't know if you're looking at this one. It looks a bit like a knuckle duster or something to me.
Yeah, I was just thinking there. I was looking at it there.
Actually, no, there's two DRS zones. There's a very short one between turn one and turn two. That is quite short, actually. The main straight itself, that is you're going to have a good lot of overtaking there with DRS, definitely. So you're going to see a few people fighting, I'd say, more into turn one than turn 14 because, it's like we've seen before with one DRS after the other. If one guy gets ahead, well, then the other guy is going to be there for the second DRS and he's going to be right behind him and he's going to want to be taking that position back, which, as we know, quite frequently happens these days. We've seen Ferrari and McLaren, or not McLaren, Ferrari and Red Bull, of course, Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc trading places many times. One gets ahead, then he gets it, but then the other fella gets it back again. So it could be quite interesting, really. There is a big lack of straights on this. It's almost more of a goal karting sort of track in many ways. You can see it through turn 4 all the way down to turn 11. It's just a turn this way, a turn that way, a turn this way, a turn that way, and there is only 14 corners on the track. So there's a lot of toing and froing, and I think this is why probably Fernando Alonso fancies himself on this. He's very good. Aston Martin are very good on tight tracks. They really are. Tight, twisty tracks, Aston Martin are at home at that stage, you know. The track actually began as the Hungaroring in 1985, and his first Grand Prix was in 1986. So it doesn't have sort of the same history as other tracks. I mean, we've had tracks that are there since like the 40s. Do you know what I mean? And then there wouldn't be a race till the 60s or the 70s. So it's unusual that way, but it is a very, very good track. And I think it's one of the best tracks on the agenda, really. It's one of my favorites. My favorites being Hungary, Monza, and of course, you know, I love the Canadian track, I have to admit. A fantastic track. I love the three of those tracks, so I'm particularly looking forward to this race.
And I suppose, you know, looking at the track, you know, each track, I suppose, has that spot where it's where the race can be won and lost. For you, and we say, you know, when looking at the map, and I'll show it up later, I'll be showing it up in a few minutes, a map of the track. You know, there are some very interesting bends. Would you say the safety car will be called in at any stage, looking at these?
I think mostly if we can make it through the first lap, perhaps we'd be fine. But, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think turn 13 and 14, there's going to be a bit of dicing on that because everyone wants to be on top of each other for the DRS zones. But I can see guys fighting very hard on turn 1 to be right behind the guy for the second DRS zone. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see a little bit of running off here and there on turn 1, maybe turn 2 if we're going just a little bit too fast. But we've seen in many races so far with DRS zones and people coming up. You know, it's kind of lasted a late breaker sometimes, and it's just a lot of cars going wide with that. I'd pick out turn 1 as a potentially dangerous one, and turn 13 as well, because it's quite a tight 180 degrees before you get to the slightly lesser, not as tight, shall we put it that way, turn 14. So I'd say I'm tipping track 1 and or turn 1 and turn 4 for that. I'm expecting to see maybe some interesting things around there with a bit of luck. The other good news is we're in for a dry weekend, they say. That always changes, you know yourself, that never lasts. Weather forecasts in general are never really dependable, as they say, you know, but we will see what happens.
And you know, looking at this track as well, I suppose, you know, like I just said, with the bends, certain bends and all that, tire selection and of course pit stops will be key. How do you see that one playing out?
I don't see any of the front runners, well, any of the top 7 or 8 anyhow going on hard tires. Yeah, they will last. But the track isn't particularly, bar the main straight, but the track isn't particularly hard and flat out. So there's a lot of corners. So there is going to be a lot of heat generated in the tires. But the problem with the hard tires is you're going to lose an awful lot of time. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if you see a soft and 2 mediums on this track, because, well, if they're pushing the cars hard, definitely. You're going to see a soft and 2 mediums on this track. I think the hard tires you just lose too much time on them. And some tracks are like that. Some tracks they do well. Some tracks they don't. I think in this particular track, 2 mediums and definitely 1 soft on top of all that. Some of the rear runners will go on hard. They have nothing to lose. You may as well see if you could jump someone, as to say.
That's it. And I suppose looking at it as well, you know, it's who would you see this track suiting more than others? You know, the way we have this, who does it suit every week? Yeah, or who's the most likely to come out on top? Now, of course, we always mention Max Verstappen, I suppose, but I know every track probably suits him, but is there anyone that it would suit more than him? Or, you know, I suppose it's down to racing style as well, isn't it? And I suppose tactics and the plans. So I suppose with that in mind, but also you know, people will be having plans, obviously, depending on weather and things like that. So with that in mind, what sort of a plan do you think the drivers will be having going into this?
I think if you're looking at drivers and you fancy a driver, I think McLaren have proved to us they're quick, but they seem quick races like Silverstone. They seem to be very fast in Silverstone, which is great for McLaren. But they seem to be not as good in the twists and turns. So I wouldn't be expecting a McLaren second and fourth like last week. Well, Max Verstappen, yeah, he's just got the situation where he has a car that suits him, a car that suits exactly what he does. It's practically designed for him.
The car is part of him, really. You know the way they say
Basically,
if you're an all-star hurler, the hurl is part of you. It's a part of your anatomy nearly, you know, and it's attached to your hand. You don't hold on to it. It's part of your arm nearly. It's the same probably with the car, you know.
It is, and it's as if, you know, Red Bull have got Max Verstappen from day one, and they've designed the car to suit his racing style. Now, Max is very diverse, and Max can do practically anything, but he does have faults like every driver. But it seems like it's just been designed for him, and it happens to be the fastest car out there. So, I mean, you know, we know that one's going to go ahead. I would be very surprised if Fernando Alonso doesn't do very well. Ferrari, you're throwing a coin up in the air. If they have a good day with no bad calls, they could easily finish in the top three. Both cars in the top five. But you know, we've seen so many inconsistent calls, bad decisions, bad tire selections. It's been terrible. You can't tell where they're going to be at the minute. But I can see Mercedes taking advantage of that. If Ferrari do fall to one side, Mercedes are going to take a direction or a little bit out of that. And I know Sergio Perez is hungry this weekend because his year has been very lackluster, not as good as it was last year. Checo just, it hasn't suited him. I don't know what's going on this year. It's not suiting him. But I think you're definitely going to see Max winning unless there's an issue. There's nothing stopping a mechanical issue. There's nothing stopping going off the track or somebody being stupid and tipping him or something. You know, these things do happen. Or an issue in the garage or something, you know. I think you could. I would quite tip Fernando Alonso for second in this one. I wouldn't be at all surprised. And I think Checo's going to be third. I think after that, it's a toss-up between Ferraris and Mercedes, really, after that. I don't see Williams being as strong. But I'm definitely tipping top three. Red Bull, Aston Martin, Red Bull. That would be, of course, Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, and Sergio Perez. Hopefully, Ferrari will have a good weekend and have Charles Leclerc maybe fighting a bit with, or Carlos Sainz fighting a bit with Sergio Perez for third. We'd like to see that, let's face it. We would like to see that. Just while we're here, I was looking because I did remember, I thought 1985 was unusual for this track because I could have sworn it was run before that, and it actually was in 1936. The race on a very different track, I will show you that in a second, was won by Tazio Nuvolari in an Alfa Romeo. Now, if you can see this track, it's a very different track than we see in the Hungaroring today.
Yeah, that's true.
New track, yeah, that's the newer track. Totally different altogether. I had an inkling when I said 1985 that there was.
It looks like a gravy boat.
Yeah, well, it is. I suppose. Look, it's a totally different track. And compared to what it was in 85, you know, when they were getting it ready in 85, as they say, you know. So I mean, it was just interesting to see an Alfa Romeo in there, and actually the man who won the first time on this track was Nelson Piquet and Williams. So there you go. You don't hear Williams enough these days. And they haven't done badly around this track. They've actually won it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Williams have won this track 6 times now. In fairness, the last time they won on this track was 1997 with Jacques Villeneuve, which is, you know, it's a bit of a pity. We'd like to see Williams back up again, thanks. If at all humanly possible. You know, we would like to see that. But yes, it will be a little different this year. I mean, last year you did have the Mercedes on second and third. I can't see that happening as much as they're going to want it to happen. And it really was, you know, it was kind of a show. The telling moment with Mercedes is they have been getting better. But when Lewis Hamilton, you know, only finishes third in Silverstone, you know, if anywhere he's going to do better is there. and that's kind of going to be about the best they're going to do. So I'd say winning a race is not going to happen, and I'd even say second will be a hard ask. We shall wait and see. I could be wrong. Well, actually, no, I might not always be right, but I'm never wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. That's it. That's the hard line you're taking. But I suppose really, looking at this race as well, is it more or less the same as always, or can you see any, I suppose, any incidents, shall we say, happening, and anything unusual that could have any potential, not hazards, but unusual events throughout the race? But the race itself, but also in qualifying.
Yeah, the race itself, the European races are pretty bulletproof, actually, and any of the older races are pretty bulletproof because they've got it down to a fine art at this stage. You don't get anything too majorly exciting happening in them. They know exactly what's going on and they know exactly how. Qualifying will be pretty okay, bar maybe the odd occasional breakdown. I couldn't see much happening other than that, really. Race itself, yeah, I definitely think the first or second last corners, 13 and 1. Yeah, if there's going to be much of an incident, I reckon it's going to be there. And I could say, yeah, especially I have to admit around 13 because it's such a tight little 180 degrees. I can see we've seen it quite often where one guy squeezes the other guy out and whoops, there goes an end plate.
Accidentally on purpose, of course.
Accidentally on purpose in some cases, but it does happen. It does happen. And I'd say that's there. And I'd say there'd be a mad rush into turn one to get the DRS for the next DRS up to turn 2. So I think you might see a little bit of pushing and shoving there too.
But only a little bit. There might be a call to an insurance company or something maybe afterwards.
Well, there might be little calls to the insurance company. You could say that, all right. How's the insurance code? You won't see any penalty points anyhow. Hopefully.
No. The police wouldn't be able to catch up with them anyway.
Well, I have heard the guards might be setting out somewhere along the main straight, but you never know.
This is it. So I suppose looking at off the track, any bit of news? I think you were mentioning Renault off air.
Yes, this is something that everybody is kind of confused about at the minute. We all know the European directive, 2030 before only electric cars can be sold, but that's been pushed to 2035, which is quite wise. Because try and find a charging station these days. I was actually somewhere recently and I noticed they had 4 charging car parking spaces, but only 2 charging stations. So that was quite interesting. There was nothing asked. There was nothing there. But what's muddied the water a bit is we know, recently Toyota have announced their new battery, which we spoke about before. And recently BMW have released just a couple of weeks ago a brand new hydrogen SUV. Which is kind of interesting because, let's face it, there's less hydrogen charging points. So why are we going for that one? But the real big one, we all know Renault is an F1 team. And we've all heard rumors about this fuel that they're bringing, the drop-in fuel, or E100 as they like to call it. Totally man-made, synthetic, practically emissions-free. They actually reckon with creating lithium and then with disposing of battery acid when the car is finished, it's actually cleaner than an electric car. But Renault and a Chinese company, I cannot for the life of me remember the Chinese company, it could be by BYD or somebody, I don't know, are building a new factory in the UK to be open in 2026. And it's making petrol and diesel engines.
There you go.
I thought that was interesting.
When you consider it's supposed to be going out. But anyway,
yeah, we're supposed to be going out of it. The UK are definitely, they're still stating they're going all electric in 2030. Yet here's a big factory being built, creating 6,000 jobs building petrol and diesel engines. So
there you go. You wonder how long those people will be in jobs for.
Well, maybe they know something we don't, because I still think if you're buying an electric car, fair play to you, but it's still a little bit too early.
Maybe hybrid. Maybe it'll be hybrid cars or something.
Oh, well, funny enough, I have my eye on a Fev only for an extra 10 or 12,000, which is the ones that do the sort of electric 35 to 40 kilometers, get you in and out of town, and then your petrol after that, But
a very posh wheelie bin.
Yes, I might create one. Actually, that's not a bad idea. You get a couple of car batteries and no wheelie bin.
There you go. I don't know how the insurance company now, or Road Safety Ireland now would think about. They'd have to do their inspections and all that. So
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, that is very
You know,
true.
it'd be like that episode of Top Gear where the lads made their own car and then they brought it into was a car trader and they had to put it through all these tests and different things and it didn't get on too well.
No, no, but it's the only way to do it, really.
At least
It
it
is
tried.
it is something I keep saying to people. Actually, I notice a lot of people go out and they buy a car because they like a car and they like the looks of it. But you should really go and look at your what car and your auto trader and see what's going on.
And Top Gear and yourself.
Top Gear, and yeah, because I mean, a car that doesn't really sell that well in this country. Yeah, Top Gear have called it the best small car money can buy for the last, well, since it came out.
Every car says that about every make of car that says that. Renault says it, and
Yeah,
they
but
all say that their car is
yeah, but
car of
this
the
is
year.
Top Gear don't make a car, and they've said that the best car, the small car money can buy, is a Fiat 500. Yet you don't see people buying too many Fiats in this country, which is
No,
peculiar because
they're too
they've
tall. People are too tall for them.
well, very true, but they've actually a better reliability track record than other car companies that people think are reliable. So don't be shy
Because I mean,
away.
I worked in the British School of Motoring there when I was in England, and
Oh yes,
they had a fleet of Fiat 500s. Funny you should say.
funny
And
you should say.
apparently there was a guy that's well over 6 foot, and he had booked
No,
a series of driving lessons booked with them. And next thing he turned up for the class for his driving lesson, and he couldn't fit into it, so he had to cancel. He had to cancel all his driving lessons and go somewhere else.
oh God, well they are tiny, but that's the concept of that car. It is meant to be small and easy and well cheap. They're not cheap anymore. Let's face it. No such thing as a cheap Fiat 500 anymore. But they are a great little car. 500X, that's the one for you.
Provided you're not over 6 foot.
Well, true, but the 500X you will fit in. The 500X is, and funny enough, the 500X is only 2,000 more expensive than the regular 500, and it's an SUV four-door. Very cheap Fiats. We've had Fiats and we love them, so that's my tuppence worth. But I do have a mate who's 6'4", and he's had Renaults, he's had everything, and he's bought an Opel Corsa recently because he can fit in it.
There you go.
You wouldn't think that now, would you?
And then you have Peter Crouch, who's 6'7". No, that would be fun.
That would be fun, actually. Yeah, he kind of needs a soft top.
I saw his documentary the other night. It was quite good. But yeah, so just to let people know about competition I'm running on both GA View and of course Friday Sport, where you could win a signed copy, not just an ordinary copy, but actually signed by the Rattler Byrne himself, former Tipperary senior hurler, and his son sent us on a copy of the book to give away on the show. So if you're interested, if you'd like to enter, it's very easy. Just send an email with your just put in the subject box the Rattler and send your name, address and phone number to either GAView on Rosfm at outlook.com or else Friday Sport at Outlook, Friday Sport on Rosfm at outlook.com, and you'll be in the hat for winning that prize. And in fact, the fact that it's signed by this man before he passed away, it was great. And of course, it's about in conjunction with a series of interviews I'm doing. So if you're interested, why not take part? And you could win a copy. So there you go. And also thrown in about the 50-50 draw on Ross FM as well. That's going to be on this day week. So if you want to enter, it's three envelopes for a £5 or €2 each. And you can also enter online on rossfm.ie. So there, what do you think of all that?
Oh, I think that's pretty good. I think actually, when you think about it, that signed, that's a bit of a collector's item.
Yeah, that's
that thing is a great collector's item. A lot of people are going to want that book now in the future, even now. You know what I mean? So I think it's a fantastic giveaway. I really do. you have to hats off to the Raftery fella for tracking that one down.
Oh, not so bad. And thanks very much to Noel Byrne as well for sending it down to us. So listen, thanks very much for taking the time out to do the last word on Formula One, and we look forward to looking back on the Hungarian Grand Prix next week.
We will indeed. Talk to you then, Aidan.
No problem. Thanks very much. And that was Michael O'Grady, our Formula One expert.